Why don't we talk about Trump's response?
Yeah, so we have a couple of responses at this point from the former president. One that he had apparently pre-taped in anticipation of being indicted on these charges. Like, let's take a listen to that.
We're a nation in decline, and yet they go after a popular president, a president that got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country, by far, and did much better the second time in the election than the first. And they go after him on a boxes hoax, just like the Russia hoax and all of the others. It's just been going on for 7 years. They can't stop because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person. They had the Mueller hoax, the Mueller report, and that came out. No collusion after 2.5 years. That was set up by Hillary Clinton and Democrats. But this is what they do. This is what they do so well. If they would devote their energies to honesty and integrity, it would be a lot better for our country. They could do a lot better. They could do a lot of great things. Our country is going to hell, and they come after Donald Trump, weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the FBI. We can't let this continue to go on because it's ripping our country to shreds. We have such big problems, and this shouldn't be one of them. It's a hoax.
So reaching there for a very familiar playbook, right? Like his allies, there's no attempt to actually refute the evidence that's provided here. It's just, this is yet another hoax. This is yet another witch hunt. This is coming from my political adversaries and enemies. So this was the initial response. Again, it was like a pre-taped video in front of that portrait. He gave another response. He was immediately sort of out on the campaign trail speaking to Republican audiences, and he reached for another part of his playbook, which is to demonize the people who were involved, their character personally. Here he is talking a little bit about special counsel Jack Smith. Take a listen.
And his wife is even more of a Trump hater. I wish her a lot of luck, but he's a bad Trump hater and she's a Trump hater. And you shouldn't put people like that in. And you know, the people looking at Biden, he's a very nice man. They looked at Mike Pence. He had classified documents, no problem.
So it's the, you know, what about them?
Right.
It's the, this is a witch hunt. It's the, let me attack the character of the people who are going after me. And, you know, none of the like direct response to any of the evidence here. And let's be honest, like this with his core fans and
it works.
And not even just his core fans, the overwhelming majority of the Republican base, I'm talking like 90%, this is going to be a successful argument.
We're going to break all this down for everyone. And I thought this is why I actually think that the Mueller investigation, Russiagate, and all of that did such damage to the credibility of the DOJ.
Agreed.
And also with the Hillary Clinton investigation, all of that did so much damage to the Republican base because they were like, look, we have no trust in your institutional capability. People like us have, you know, made entire careers now actually looking through this evidence, trying to break it down for people to understand why that was bad. So then you can't make people, you know, you can't change their preconceived notions where we're like, well, yeah, on this one, it is different. But, you know, if you're a casual consumer out there and you already view this as political, specifically the entire institution as political, then why should you have any faith in their ability at all?
Yeah.
You know, and look, I mean, also with the DOJ, why are we choosing someone whose wife did a documentary on Michelle Obama? That's definitely weird. Like she made the now, listen, you know, is he unimpeachable? I have no idea. You know, the way that people used to talk about Mueller and, oh, he's the greatest straight shooter to ever live. I'm like, well, you know, it's like, I don't really think that is the case for anybody.
There's a lot of hero worship of these guys.
That's my thing. I don't know why we have to sit here and be like, I'm going to be the defender of Jack Smith's honor. If you were to tell me dispassionately the guy's wife made a documentary about Michelle, I'd be like, yeah, maybe choose somebody else. You know, like maybe you have somebody who didn't go that. Why are you even giving them ammunition? That does not, though, you know, change some of the facts within the indictment. And you know, I'm eager. I want to hear a defense from the president and from his team. I'm like, look, present it. This is your day in court. Like you have a chance. But, you know, unfortunately, that's not what they've been able to offer up so far. Politically, though, I think this is smart. Let's put this up there on the screen. Very first interview that he gave so far on Air Force One to Alex Eisenstadt over at Politico. He just says, quote, "I will never leave, even if I am convicted." Yeah, exactly. As if any of us would need to know that. Quote, "Look, if I would have left, I would have left prior to the original race in 2016. That was a rough one. In theory, that was not doable." But he said that the harsh criticisms at Jack Smith, he says these are, quote, "thugs and degenerates who are after me." He said he would not be convicted, did not anticipate taking a plea deal, though he left open the possibility of doing so, quote, "where they would pay me some damages." In terms of whether he would have to pardon himself should he win the presidency in 2024, he says, quote, "I do not think I will ever have to. I didn't do anything wrong." As far as his indictment and all of that, he just says, nobody wants to be indicted. I don't care that my poll numbers went up by a lot. I think you do. I don't want to be indicted. I've never been indicted. I went through my whole life. Now I get indicted every 2 months. Quote, "It's been political." That's another issue, I think, whenever it comes to the man. This is part of what we talked about so much during the Alvin Bragg investigation. We were like, this is the flimsiest, stupidest one in order to bring against Trump, when you literally had this one really hanging over his head. In many ways, Alvin Bragg, I comes back to my previous point. Alvin Bragg, Russiagate, Mueller, Hillary, every single one of those investigations in the eyes of the public does make this look more capital P political, maybe even than it is. But unfortunately for them, they're going to have to live with that. We do live in a democracy.
Yeah, I mean, we have two questions here, right? There's the legal question, in which looks to be a pretty airtight case, right? Now, again, we'll hear what they have to say, but so far we haven't gotten any sort of reasonable defense from the president or his team that makes a whole lot of sense, okay? So there's the legal question. On the political question, with the Republican electorate, no doubt that they're already persuaded that this is a witch hunt. And it really wouldn't matter what facts Jack Smith was able to lay out. Like that case has already opened and shut for them. They think any attack on Trump is coming from bad faith actors. And you see this even in the DeSantis-Trump fight, where DeSantis has to be so careful about the way he couches his criticism, so they can't just be dismissed as like, you sound like a Democrat now. And that is the way that the Republican base has been trained to view every single attack on Trump. Now, there are real questions about how this timeline is going to play out because, we haven't even gotten to trial on the original Alvin Bragg charges. This is a complex case. It is likely that Trump's team is going to throw up all kinds of, roadblocks to try to drag this thing out. And so it is very likely that we don't have a resolution to this case on the legal front until after the election.
Very possible.
Which is, listen, putting the clearly damning facts aside, it is just an extraordinary set of circumstances that you have the former president running against the current president. The current president's Department of Justice is prosecuting the former president and his chief rival in the midst of a presidential campaign. There's just no doubt about it that that is an unprecedented and extraordinary set of circumstances and that these are uncharted waters. So you do have the specter of still having these charges hanging over Trump as we go into Election Day without a resolution, and this becoming very existential for him in terms of his own personal freedom. And he is already framing the campaign in those sorts of existential terms. Now, Trump always frames his campaigns in existential terms, but he's overtly saying to his supporters, this is a, quote, final battle, that this is like the last front in their war to destroy their enemies, et cetera, et cetera. And so, the results of Election Day could matter. Obviously, they're going to matter a lot for the future of the country, but they could also matter very directly for whether former President Trump is going to end up in prison behind bars, because these are serious charges and they could very much lead to that outcome.
I'm really glad that you laid out the timeline for everybody, because this is not going to be quick. I believe, and from people I've spoken to, there are going to be multiple Supreme Court level cases that will arise here about Presidential Records Act, about the way that these things are governed, executive privilege. The president and his team have to go through the normal legal process from a federal judge, the appellate court, up to the Supreme Court. You can have expedited review. Then you have to go through the normal trial. You're going to have discovery. This could take a hell of a long time. We don't know even if the DOJ is going to be able to push that. And then also they're going to have to run up against the political barrier of prosecuting the chief opponent, likely opponent, to the current president of the United States.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.